That was one like funny thing about, I mean, maybe not funny, but interesting thing about COVID and everyone having masks. Like you could conceal your emotions and expressions a lot better in
Yes.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's
sometimes
true.
the
You
eyes
could,
betray it.
yeah, sometimes. Man, it's been so long, but I remember that I would like I would try like when you would, because I normally like smile at people in public like relatively frequently, and
Yeah.
uh, and so like, but then you'd have to like really try to smile with your eyes, and you'd be like, because
Yeah.
it's like it's just a lot more subtle, you know.
I think I noticed after that, actually, I started over smiling with my eyes, even without a mask. And I've tried to like correct my smile, like where before I was like, like too big, and now I'm like, okay, just chill out, just smile with your mouth, no crow's feet
That's
and all that stuff.
that's hilarious. Crow's feet is such a stupid word because it sounds so gross, but it's just
Hmm.
like, it's just natural. It's like, it's
Right?
just the evidence of a life well lived. Like, can we come up with a better word for the evidence of a life well lived than crow's feet? Like, what the fuck? It always makes me feel like I have a fucking crow like scratching my face off or something like that.
Right. Something more positive, It's like the rings of a tree, you know.
You, exactly. The rings of a tree is a great example. Everybody loves the rings of a tree.
Yeah,
Imagine
let's
if you
work on that.
called them. Yeah, let's work on that, man. Yeah, I mean, you rebranded the Shopify Collective pretty well. Drop shipping,
Reimagine.
reimagined. That could be a damn Apple commercial right there, dude. But the funny thing is that you were saying it in the context of like it really is not that big of a deal.
Right. Yeah, I
But
think you
then,
edit it well to make it like positive.
it's what I do. But yeah, that's funny. And then I just saw your LinkedIn post about how you were
Modern
like, do
reading.
you agree that, yeah. Do you
Yeah,
agree that Shopify is encroaching onto da 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 da? And I was getting ready to write a reply. I was like, here we go. I'm gonna let him know how I feel about this. And then I was like, that's too much to say.
save it for
I
the
don't.
podcast, man. Let me know how you really feel about that.
Okay, okay. Actually, that's a good idea because
Hmm.
it's a lot of times a lot easier for me to just spit it out verbally. But I mean,
Yeah.
and we sort of already talked about this, but like platforms always cannibalize their ecosystem. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the nature of the beast. So I think you were saying that there's already third-party solutions to this. So like, why should they touch it?
Yeah.
But and I'm sort of newer to the ecosystem, so like I can imagine if you had been in it for a while and you had seen. Fun fact: Carro was the very first partnership call that I did at Mesa,
Oh
and
wow.
I actually noticed that the marketing guy there went to my school, which is I can't think of the last person I've seen went to my college. I can't think of the last person I've seen in e-commerce that went to my school.
Hmm.
So, anyways, we had a cool call. He was real friendly. I had no idea what I was talking about on that very first call. But, anyways, like you probably have seen a lot of these solutions, have used them, and have been like, okay, they work. But from my perspective, there's something that does feel very like core to the platform to allow this store to sell this store's stuff.
Hmm.
It just sort of actually feels very right to me as a native functionality. And that's
Yeah.
without really knowing that much about how well the other things work and things like that. But there's something that feels very like elegant to me about, the core of the platform are the stores, and if you're just letting one store sell another store's stuff, it seems kind of smooth.
I think it's almost getting closer to the marketplace concept, which the Shop app actually is basically a marketplace now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's their goal of just kind of uniting merchants more. And,
Hmm.
you know, I know that they've also acquired apps in the past, and like the Marketplace Connect app that they have now. It's actually
Hmm.
an app that was already in the App Store, and I guess they bought it and have
Hmm.
rebranded it as a Shopify thing. So maybe
Hmm.
the better question is like, why did they decide to build their own versus acquiring? And my theory is that like Carro has been around for a while and they've taken on VC funding, and um, maybe they were like too expensive, and they're like, well, we can just write our own like
Oh,
for way cheaper, you know, and instead
gotcha.
of paying $100 million or something for this
Right.
VC backed company. Um,
Right. Like I could imagine, like I think they put 25 mil into Triple Whale. I could
mhm.
imagine they would have been down to drop a cool 25 on this, and then yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe they came back and said, "Hey, how about 100?" And they said, "Hey, how about?" And then they said, "Hey, how about Toby knocks this out in a weekend?"
Yeah, how about $1 billion? I have no inside
Toby.
information on that conversation, but I'm sure that's what happened.
Nice, nice,
I
nice,
mean,
nice.
but I guess you touch on like a third option, and it's kind of timely, is Klaviyo or Clavio. I can never remember which one. Like announced their IPOing, and Shopify did invest like I think $100 million in Clavio a while ago. Um, and there's another public company, I think Global E, that they invested a couple, maybe 50 million-ish. I don't know. Um, so it's interesting that there's kind of like three options for Shopify with their ecosystem. They can invest, they can acquire, or they can replace and cannibalize. And I'm sure that they have to go through kind of a business assessment of each option. And maybe with
Right.
the drop shipping, it was like, okay, it's pretty easy to replace this, and they wanted to, instead of having to pay tens of millions of dollars to acquire something existing.
Yeah, that may have happened.
What are we looking at
Um,
this screen? Oh, Clavio,
y-
Clavio.
yeah, I want to figure out how to pronounce it. How do you pronounce Clavio? I always say Clavio, but
I do too.
that's that's not an indication that it's right or anything like that. I'm using an incognito browser this time around, just to be on the safe side. Not that I have
Finally.
anything to hide in my browser history. Okay, I have
Yeah.
nothing to hide. I will share my full browser history with the entire world
Export that.
at some point in the future. I'm sure we all will at some point in the future, but it doesn't look like there's any good answers to this. But sorry, I kind of missed what you were saying because I was pulling this browser up. You're saying with 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 Clavio, damn it, with Clavio going public, you were saying something about.
Well, it's just another option when Shopify is interested in getting into something. Instead of acquiring it or like trying to replace it, they can invest in it, like they did with Klaviyo, and they've
Hmm.
they've done a couple more of those investments. I think
Got you.
globally,
Right.
globally kind of powers their like international stuff, even like their Shopify Markets Pro. It's kind of globally in the background.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. This sounds sort of almost slightly familiar. No, no, not familiar. The one that I hear about all the time is Open Border. Is that what it's called?
Hmm.
Open Border. Yeah. What's the spiel? What's the difference between these two?
Um,
One of them has a good logo.
yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I don't I don't know the
I
difference.
guess we'll figure
I
it
just
out.
know I know Globally, and then Shopify Markets Pro is basically powered by Globally. So that's an interesting way that they like didn't
Oh,
cannibalize their market. They partnered with an existing solution.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I mean, they white labeled it. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. Well, not even. White label is one of those words that you throw around, but then I guess since they're mentioning it, it's not technically a white label.
Right. Maybe
But
maybe
like,
because of the Drake stuff, they were like, we really got to support these Canadians, you know.
wait. Is Global E Canadian?
Oh, I don't know. No, I'm
Oh,
saying that that's why they created Collective.
gotcha. Wait, I don't get the connection. I don't get the connection between that.
All right. Like Harley loves Canada.
Right, yeah, no, yeah, right,
Drake
right.
is Canadian. He's probably
Right,
the most
yes,
famous artist.
yes.
Theoretically, maybe Drake's management came to Shopify and was like, "Hey, we want to do this Drake related thing. What
Right.
solution do you have?" And they were like, "Oh, this is so cool. We don't want to like
Gotcha.
white label someone else's product." Like, and then they created a team to just build this cross-selling drop shipping product for Drake. And then they're like, "All right, we should market
Yes.
to everyone else too."
Yeah. That's entirely possible because like think about what lengths you would go to for, and I'm not personally a gigantic Drake fan, but I get it. Like I totally get that he's absolutely massive. Plus he's Canadian. Plus he's his thing's gonna be in Shopify. So I mean, I could imagine Harley being like, "Listen, guys, we're dedicating 100% of our dev cycles to Drake for the next 24 months. Give
Yep.
him whatever, give him whatever he wants." And then Toby chimes in and he's like, we have a couple other things to work on." And Harley's like, "Shut up." No, just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. I bet Toby calls the shots. Who do you think calls the shot? Because I never like Toby's the CEO, so he
Yeah.
probably is ultimately in charge of most things.
Yeah. I think he calls the shots. I think he still has like control of the company from
Hmm.
a public shares perspective. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's some weird thing similar to Facebook where Mark Zuckerberg has complete control over Facebook or Meta, even though
Mm-hmm.
they don't own 50% of the company. I think there's
Mm-hmm.
some sort of thing set up like that. Um, so he's still the top
Gotcha.
dog. And I think Harley probably like just takes a lot of like the mundane, president stuff off of his plate. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously Harley's a little more like energetic and out there. Toby's more like a CTO, but he's obviously the founder too. So
Right. Right. I realized I think what I'll do on the screen share is that by default, I'll just include our videos. But
mhm.
because I just noticed the incognito was showing my search history, so it's like it's my on my autocomplete. So it's like what is
What's the
even the
point?
point? But
Gotta
anyways,
use
and then we can
Safari.
yeah, that's probably what I should do. And then Safari is where the real crazy stuff goes down. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. Um, but yeah, and then we can and then if we need like if we need it for one thing or another, we have it. But by
Yeah,
default, I'll probably just not include it. Um,
yeah,
anyways,
uh,
inside baseball.
yeah. Um,
Um,
with the Canada stuff too, I know that Staples Canada is running on Shopify and has been running on Shopify for a while,
mhm,
and that is like a story where there was almost like a partnership of like, hey, we're both Canadian companies, like let's work together. And then
right.
some dev team somewhere had to like figure out how to make it work, and they have a custom checkout, which is kind of like not allowed on Shopify, but they allow it
Gotcha.
on Staples Canada.
They let it slide for Staples can't. Man, Harley and his backroom deals, man. I get it. Shoot, man, I get it. It's like, and props to them, dude, because honestly, they're punching way above their weight. You know what I mean? In terms of well, Canada has a lot of cool tech companies, but I mean, they're not just a cool tech company. I mean, they're one of the biggest tech companies in the world. I mean, I don't know if they're in the top 10, but I mean, they're absolutely massive. So sometimes you have to build what's the word? A consensus in order to, you got to pool your resources and stuff like that. So like, yeah,
They're
I
probably
think it's smart.
probably the most well-known Canadian company now. I think BlackBerry used to be the most
Right.
well-known, but poor BlackBerry, they missed the boat there.
Yeah, I don't feel too bad for BlackBerry. I mean, they had, do we feel bad? I mean, they had a nice run of it and they
Yeah.
dropped the ball, man. I mean, I mean,
Did you see that BlackBerry movie that they released recently?
no, no, I don't think I did.
It's really good.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, it's dramatized.
Oh,
Has
nice. Just check that out.
couple big name actors. Um, yeah,
Nice. Should
I was
definitely
talking
check
to
that out.
one of my classmates, and he used to work for BlackBerry, like kind of during the time of the I don't know the movie, and he said
Hmm.
it's pretty accurate. So
Nice.
they had a nice run, and then Apple ate their lunch basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and at the time it was like, oh, you have to have a keyboard and stuff like that was their perspective. And
Yep.
it made a lot of sense because early on, dude, when you try to type on a phone and you haven't a glass thing and you haven't done it before, and the
Hmm.
digital keyboards weren't very. I mean, now there's touch sensing and sounds. I mean, there's all sorts of, and people are
Yeah.
used to it. But back then, I could totally see where they're coming from. That they're like, this is never going to work. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of wish I had a physical keyboard still on my stupid phone, you know.
You could
But
bring around a Bluetooth keyboard. You can pair it with iPhones.
right,
Let's prop it up.
right, just carry it in my pocket.
Yeah.
you're st- you're standing in line googling something at a coffee shop, and you just whip out your keyboard.
I've seen people bring like iMacs to coffee shops before too, and I'm like, what?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's funny.
the whole computer.
That's awesome. Just go all in.
But with the staples stuff, it's interesting because I think that they're going more in that direction now with the commerce components things,
Hmm.
where they're saying, hey, like you can use the checkout, you can use our product management, you can use our order management. Like we don't
Hmm.
really care anymore about like what piece you use, but just use some part of Shopify. We'll figure it out.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that was a big blocker in the past because before, like I mean, literally they would say like this outside checkout isn't allowed. And, they banned like Fast, that startup that came and
Right.
went. Bolt, so many external checkouts. They said no, like you can't do that. Um,
Right.
and now with big enterprises, they're being a little more gracious and saying, okay, however you want to use Shopify, it's totally fine. Just use
Right.
some piece of Shopify.
Right. Do you think that they're going to ultimately be as successful in the enterprise space as they are in the consumer space?
Um, Probably not. I think they have a really big uphill battle to get
Hmm.
into those companies. And,
Hmm.
it's part of why they're pushing like the Gartner,
Yeah.
report, all that kind of stuff. They're trying to get the trust of these CIOs that are used to working with, you know, kind of from the ground up enterprise software, like a Salesforce or
Hmm.
like a Demandware or Hybris or SAP. These things that are like really they're a pain to use, but enterprises are used to using them. And when there's like almost more of a consumer mid-market solution that's trying to push up enterprise, by default, I don't think those companies like trust it because it's like,
Right.
oh, this isn't ready. So Shopify is having to do a lot to try to combat that mentality of it not being ready for the enterprise. And I think that's
Yeah.
why. they're doing all these reports and, big five consulting stuff.
Yeah. And it's kind of because somebody told me like it might have been related to Shop Talk, but somebody told me like Shopify never like presented at conferences, never sponsored. It might have even
Mhm.
been you. I don't know who told me that, but they were they basically were like it was almost like their absence was like so obvious. It was almost like we don't care about your dumb spot. Like we don't need to do these. We don't need to play these games because our software is just better. It was kind of like reading between the lines the way I interpreted it.
Yeah,
And in a way, like that's kind of badass. Like in a way, it's kind of a bummer that now they're having to play all these sort of games. And it's like I totally understand. Now when I see the Gartner report stuff, at first I was like, nobody cares about that thing. But then I was like, okay, I get what they're doing and why they're doing it.
yeah.
But it's kind of like that's sort of the problem with the enterprise space is that everybody has to do all these dances and play all these games as opposed to just going, okay, which software is the best? Let's use that. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yeah, it's a lot more talk and sadly like whining and dining because the deals that they
Yeah.
make in the enterprise space are so large, like you have that ability. And if Shopify tries to take every client out for dinner that they have, they go broke buying them a few drinks. So with the commerce component stuff, my understanding is that they have a completely separate like enterprise sales team um,
Yeah.
that probably operates more like an enterprise sales team.
Yeah. It's probably like a mini Salesforce company inside of Shopify type of
Exactly.
thing. And I heard some things about some of the Shopify products, which shall remain nameless, and the teams that work on them that may or may not be more towards the enterprise side of the company, that may or may not have quality that is less than kind of the consumer product.
Yeah.
And it sort of made sense to me. Like
Mhm.
it sort of clicked for me in a way because like we've seen like that's kind of how enterprisey software goes is that it's just never as good. Like, right? It's this
I
weird paradox that like people
right.
pay more money for it. The decision processes are more important and in theory more thorough, but in practice it's like incentives get misaligned, steak dinners factor in way more than they should,
Yeah.
like stuff like that. And so it's like the software sort of suffers. And so, like, I firmly believe, like, the core of what Shopify does is the best in the world as far as an independent checkout, like Amazon's is probably better as a checkout.
Hmm.
But as in something that any merchant can own, but then all of the things surrounding the core, everything has 2.5 star. All their first party apps have,
That's
even
what I said in that article in Modern Retail. Like, I'm not
right.
sure I'm going to get
But
canceled for that.
right. But I still think it's a good strategy that they're doing it. And even though the products are actually good, but they get those star ratings because the support isn't there or because there are issues or whatever. But
Hmm.
like I think the strategy makes sense, but it's just like, and then as you take it to the enterprise, and they're doing the consulting Gartner reports, and who knows where that data is coming from for big commerce and stuff. It's
Yeah.
like, it's like I don't know, but part of me feels like they will win the enterprise just because I don't know. I feel like they're a unique company. Like I feel like they're just I don't know. I just, part of me
I
thinks
think
they're going to pull it off.
they still have an uphill battle, and I think it's more of a culture battle and a perception battle. And the enterprise market moves a lot slower.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that they kind of at least have a foot in the door of like mind share. People know the name Shopify. Um, the question is whether they can change the perception of Shopify as being like mid-market. Um,
Right.
and to your point about like I don't know the stability and everything, I think a lot of that is because people very high up like make the decisions, and then people very low down have to implement them, and
Hmm.
that's where when these big projects get done, it's like someone signed a contract so far away from the actual implementation,
Hmm.
um, and then the people on the bottom just have to like try to figure out how to make it work. And there's like a deadline, and it's just like, okay, we're going to launch this date, regardless of the crazy requirements, regardless of whether the platform really does what it's supposed to do.
Right. 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 Basically, the more people involved in decisions, the worse the decisions get.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when you have millions of single person entrepreneurs making decisions about software, they tend to make better decisions than
yeah,
these huge companies and very highly paid people that make decisions in a committee of 20. The decisions end up being worse. Like,
mm-hmm,
so speaking of which, shout out to Gil here.
mm-hmm,
Um, Greenberg, who he had tweeted that we're talking about some of these bigger brands and stuff like that, that working with some absolutely monster brands to customize checkout who are actively migrating to Shopify. Next year is going to be a mega year for household brands switching to Shopify. So I'm obviously super curious, right, who these brands are, and Gil is
mm-hmm.
he's I'm I love following him. He's building out his SaaS empire, and so that's super interesting to
It's
see.
It's cool too that it seems like these brands are able to go to Shopify and not have to use a completely custom checkout. Um, Shopify's done a lot of work in the past, probably like 2 years, to make their checkout actually like extendable and customizable. Where it isn't like before, I think that was one of the biggest limitations of Shopify, and a lot of the Magento folks would bring it up of like, oh, but what about the checkout? If you need to do this and this, like you can't. Um,
Right,
and that as Shopify opens it up for customization, a lot of those arguments kind of go out the door.
right, right. And are you talking about the commerce components totally customizable thing, or just the current state with the customizations to checkout and functions and stuff like that?
Yeah, not even pulling in the commerce component stuff. They now have checkout APIs, um, and ways for like checkout blocks runs on these new APIs. Like it couldn't
Right,
exist a year or two
right,
ago
right,
because
right, right,
Shopify didn't allow that kind of functionality to tie into the checkout.
right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and like that was the whole thing about Shopify for so long, is that the checkout wasn't customizable, and Magento's was, but then Magento's always fallen over, and then Shopify is they're doing a Black Friday thing, and they got this cool ass visualization of bajillion orders a second, and I mean that's
Yep.
extremely hard to do. So it's like, well, that's the reason why you can't customize. And now they've finally started to have a significant amount of customization while keeping the core thing stable.
Yep.
Um, but it took them like 14 years to do that. So that's pretty. But it's interesting because I posted a question in one of the Facebook groups, like, what do you love or hate the most about Shopify? And then somebody had mentioned like, well, you can't use Shopify scripts anymore in the checkout.
Yep.
You have to use, right, like the
Shopify
yeah,
functionalism.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and so part of me was like, okay, I can get the frustration because you're comfortable, you're used to doing this previous thing, but my read on it was that the new set of APIs and functions and stuff are so much better of a
Hmm.
model
Yeah.
that like you should be glad, like you should actually be really happy that you have that now. So
Yeah, you have to kind of rethink some of the ways that you do things, but I think, overall, they've opened up more functionality. Just you have to
right,
do it a different way.
right, totally. Um,
go into our Google Doc.
Yes, I start to get lost in the screens. I actually try not to look at the screen too much because it makes it hard for me to like concentrate. but um, yeah, what did we want to jump? Oh, we got to get you to buy something.
Oh yeah,
You you want to buy
I
something?
I gotta share my screen.
Yeah, dude.
Oh boy,
New stuff.
let me
Yes.
see. Let me
Let's get
see.
into it, man.
My first time sharing screen.
May
Make
the
this
force
full
be
screen.
with you.
Okay, are we live?
Yeah.
So, in honor of you joining the Two Tesla Club. By the way, when does your second Tesla come in, or is it already coming?
Dude, it came in quick, man. It came in like a week, or it might have been a week or like a week and a half from when we ordered it.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
dude.
Uh, what you have a Model 3 and a Model Y or what?
Two Model Ys, one
Nice.
white, one gray. Yep.
Wow.
Good
Matchy
times.
matchy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, matchy matchy.
I have a
A
really
white.
old 3 and a Y. Like the 3
Nice.
I think is like probably like worth almost nothing. So I'm just like I'm not gonna get rid of it. Like
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I don't
How what year is the three?
know. 2019. I mean,
It's
kind of
funny how
worth
that's
it.
like really old. But
Yeah.
no, but dude, like my Model Y, I got it used. I think it's 21. I think I
hmm
got it in 22. But anyways, just little things in the current latest model, like the center console, the place where you put the phones. Like I'm so jealous. I'm like tempted to steal my wife's car and let her have mine because it's just so much nicer. But it's like, small things.
Yeah.
But
I think I'm gonna get a charge port sticker thing. I
nice.
saw one of your cars had something like this on the back, or was that just something on Instagram? Or am I like
That was on
completely like
Instagram,
imagining?
dude. I was at the service center and getting my tire looked at, and I was looking at one of the cars in the showroom. It was a Model S Plaid. Oh my God,
Yeah.
dude. It was so beautiful. But I thought it was some kind of a Spider-Man thing on the
Mm-hmm.
back that it had, and it looked so cool. So is that just a sticker?
I think so. I think it's just a
Dude,
sticker.
that's dope.
You can still see
How are
my
you
screen,
gonna,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. How are you gonna hide your address?
I'm
I
gonna
don't,
use my work address. I already put it in there.
oh, nice. Oh, it doesn't
Yeah.
show there.
I don't
Uh,
care. I mean, it's already public. It's not a physical location.
yeah, yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, yeah, gotcha.
Guess
Smart
I can
man.
get offers. So yeah, this stuff is new and it's part of like the checkout extensibility. Whereas before you couldn't have like all this extra stuff unless you were on Plus and you had
Right,
to like manually add it with scripts.
right, right. That's pretty
There's
awesome.
so many things.
But
Get 1% cash.
I wonder if those things are hurt conversion rates. Because
The upsells?
you got buttons. Like, I
Yeah,
hate stuff like that.
your card was declined. That's funny. That's embarrassing.
Mark is broke. Don't, don't, definitely don't work with Mark. He's broke.
Uh, now I have to use another address, or I
I
put
don't
a
know.
card in, and then like we'll have to like edit that out. Maybe
Yeah,
we don't go further in
close.
sharing the
Yeah,
screen share. Yeah,
yeah. We got close. Close enough.
so hard.
I don't know how you travel so much without any money, dude.
I don't know either. Wait, I don't know. All right. I'm not gonna check out.
All right, we got close. We got very
So
close.
close. But like the stuff on the side, I don't think it hurts conversion. It's more about like the average order value. And like
Right,
trying to get people to order more at once because
right,
especially shipping, like we've talked about in the past, shipping is like the biggest obstacle for non-Amazon merchants.
right.
And whatever you can do to just like throw another sticker in the box that literally like, won't increase the shipping, but combining those things.
Yeah. By the way, what's the shipping? What's the shipping time on this? Doesn't even say.
Around, yeah. Just like, I don't know. Like slow-ish, fast-ish.
Dude, you're not gonna get that for like a week and a half, dude.
That's
Oh man.
that's definitely a call out for merchants. Like people want to know like exactly when they're gonna get something when they
Dude.
order.
Yeah. People want to know. They want to know, is it going to be 1 day or 6 hours? That's what,
Amazon set that bar. It's like, am I gonna get it tomorrow? Am I gonna get
yeah.
it someday? Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah, it's surprising me that that isn't easier to just sort of fix, but that shows that I haven't like thought very much about it.
I think maybe Deliver or Flexport has to fix that, right?
Yeah.
That's that's the savior to Shopify shipping problems.
Yeah, dude. Hopefully, man. Um, yeah. Yeah. It's Oh, I saw somebody mention something about buy with Prime.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
and they were saying that it was pretty pretty bad because like you it doesn't like integrate with like you don't it doesn't pull let me pull the tweet up. It doesn't like pull the customer information into
Shopify.
so it's just all
Yeah,
discombobulated, you know.
yeah.
Oh, here we go. He goes, this one guy tweeted, he said, after using Buy with Prime for an 8-figure brand this year, I can confirm it's terrible. And then he said, it doesn't function at all well with Shopify. Customers don't get typical Shopify email flow. Purchase isn't recorded in customer account. Have to use a separate portal for customer experience, refunds, and tracking. Customers can't use discounts and doesn't work for subscriptions. So it's basically like, I mean, it is terrible from that perspective, you know.
It's
Um,
they've improved it from a customer perspective though. Actually, I'll share my screen real quick.
okay.
Um, but it's controversial because it takes them off of Shopify to buy to buy it, and the orders don't flow back into Shopify.
Right.
So if you click Buy with Prime, now they actually have this little drawer cart. They didn't have it
Oh.
before. But one complaint before was like you could only like, buy one thing at a time. So now
Mhm.
they have that, and then you click proceed with checkout, and then it makes you log into Amazon. Already done that, and then um, and then they have a little special checkout for you. Before it was kind
That's
of
kind of smooth.
it was kind of janky the checkout, but now it's pretty smooth.
That is pretty smooth.
Yeah,
And it's probably just either them not wanting to share customer data or probably that, or maybe Shopify not exposing certain APIs to them
I think
that,
Shopify one didn't want them to do it at all, so
oh
they
yeah,
haven't really
yeah,
been cooperating.
yeah, I could imagine that.
And Amazon's just like, well, we'll do it without you.
Hmm.
But maybe if there was more cooperation, Amazon could flow the orders back into Shopify, so there was more customer data.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
Shopify loves the checkout and they love payments, and that's kind of how they make their money. So
Yeah.
they're not super incentivized to help Amazon with a great integration for that.
Yeah. 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 So I mean, yeah. So that may be mostly Shopify being the reason why it sucks. But but I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon didn't want to share customer data. I don't know if they do share if they do share customer data in general with Buy with
Yeah.
Prime, or if they keep it like locked in.
I think I think they share the customer data, but it doesn't flow back into the systems normally.
Okay. Okay. So
Like,
so it might be entirely Shopify that's making the integration suck, which is fair because that's their main competitor in a
well,
way.
yeah, and I have a feeling Shopify maybe wanted a percentage, like a cut, and Amazon's like, no, I don't really want to give you a cut, and so maybe they're
Gotcha.
still negotiating on it. Because
Gotcha.
right now, Shopify doesn't get anything if you do a buy with Prime order, because Shopify doesn't even know about it. It doesn't come
Right.
through as an order in Shopify.
Right. 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 Yeah. That's interesting. Um, dude, so what's your secret to writing less email?
Hiring more people
Nice.
to
Nice.
manage clients. Like
Nice.
when I started, I was managing all the clients, and I think at one point I was personally managing like 30, 40 clients. And then I realized like that's not sustainable, that's not scalable. But I didn't like trust people to talk to the clients, um, because I thought that's what clients wanted. They wanted to talk to me,
Hmm.
and the more and more um, I find people that do like talking to clients, I realize I don't like talk to clients, and a lot of people are actually way better at it than me. So I'm like, that's great, you know.
Hmm.
You want to have meetings with clients? That's fine. Like I don't even like get on calls a lot of times with clients. So,
Nice, man. Living the dream. What what's what would you say is the thing that you like to do and are good at within in your realm?
I think it's a bit more in the strategy of,
Hmm.
hey, choosing the platform, and kind of like the architecture of like, okay,
Hmm.
we're going to use this platform, um, use these apps. Uh, here, here's how like we can best accomplish your goals versus like I'm not quite so much in the weeds of like, okay, how do we code this little thing? Like
Hmm.
I used to be that person, but
Hmm.
I realized that when you're so in the weeds, you don't have like a good big picture view of like what's going on. So
Hmm.
I kind of had to force myself to get out of doing the nitty gritty to be able
Hmm.
to have kind of the mind space to think about the other stuff, because otherwise I was
Hmm.
just worrying about, okay, how am I going to code this? Like
Hmm.
I don't want to do it this way because I don't want to write that code.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
What
Um,
how's your you know role change, and you know, or you have a
yeah,
job versus like running a
yeah.
company?
Yeah, it's actually been similar in the sense that I have less responsibilities. Like for so long, I've been the guy that has to respond to every single email, do
Mm-hmm.
every call, and then I would just like not do calls. I'd be like, somebody would want to like do business with me, and I'd be like, can you just email me, you know? So like, yeah, so that's been good actually because. Like somebody, um, my buddy roped me into this ebook that a couple different tech vendors were working on for Black Friday, and then we have a
Oh,
guy
cool.
that writes content, so he like knocked out the content, and
Yeah.
I was like, I felt a little weird about it because I felt like I should have done that, but Like that was cool. And so it's actually really nice that I don't have to do everything. And I'm really liking that. I do still have to do calls, which I sometimes have a love hate relationship with calls.
Yep.
Like I had this one possible partner, which is like they're like a bigger company, and we did a call, and I was like excited because it's like a bigger company, but then I realized I don't think we're very high on their list. I think that they're just sort of kind of kicking the tires a little bit. And so then I was just like, so they like checked in again, and I was like, do I really have to do this call? So then I kind of pushed back a little bit, but but in general, it's pretty good. And and then they let me work on this podcast, which was cool.
Yeah.
Um, Dedicate
Yeah.
some work time to that, which was sweet. Shout out to Mesa. So
Now
slapping their
this is
logo.
your responsibility. This is part
Y-
of your job right there.
Yeah, yeah, which is helps a lot to keep it going. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's going pretty good. But I
Do,
do I do obviously miss, being the man in charge of everything. There's something nice
right.
about that. Um,
At
and
Commerce Hero, did you have like much of a team and did you enjoy managing people, or is that like you're like, no, I don't like that?
yeah, no, I never had a team. I never I think I tried to hire a COO one time to help with some things that didn't last too long. I
Yeah.
think I might have tried to hire a support person, hired some video editing help from time to time. But yeah, I've just never been good at building teams, man. I've never been, ironically, I've never been good at it. Um, and so I never did it. I would just do everything myself. Um, I mean, it worked pretty well in a sense,
Mhm.
but then I just kind of got burnt out on it, even though there wasn't like a lot of work time wise, but but I still somehow I just was coasting. I was just kind of coasting, and
Right.
something you can, if you build something up, it can chug along for a while, but you can't
Mhm.
coast indefinitely. And I kind of knew that in the back of my head, um, but it eventually just kind of petered out. But
Mhm.
so I'm
Maybe,
I'm yeah.
yeah. That's an interesting, I think, difference between like a SaaS business and an agency, more service-based business, because
Hmm.
I didn't really hire anyone for like 4 or 5 years. And what
Hmm.
like made me hire people
Hmm.
was that I overcommitted to project, and so I had too much work. And so I was like, oh, okay, I should hire people to help me. And because
Hmm.
I can't scale the business, just having my 40 hours a week
Hmm.
versus SaaS, it like kind of seems more manageable as one person, and you can choose, how
Hmm.
much energy you put into it. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
but if you're on the service side and you just have these things to get done, and like clients are breathing down your neck, it kind of
Hmm.
more incentivizes you to be like, okay, maybe some people can help me get all this stuff done.
Yeah, you're like forced to do it, and then because you're forced to do it, you learn to do it, and then you learn to delegate, and then you eventually get to the point where you have quite a bit of flexibility. Um,
Yeah.
and I got into this Twitter argument with some guy that was like saying, he was talking about his SaaS, and he's like, I've built affiliate businesses. That was the big red flag. Affiliate businesses, agencies, e-commerce brands, and now I'm building a SaaS. And so then somebody respond, and I'm like, okay, fine, dude, whatever. And these are just things that show up in my feed. I'm not
Yeah.
going and hunting around. And then somebody responded and asked something about building the SaaS, and then he was like, "Well, you can't do it you can't do it by yourself. You can't build a SaaS by yourself." And I was like, "Yeah, you can." And then he's like, "Well, we have 22 people that have been working for 18 months on our da 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 da." And I was like, okay, like that's cool. Like there's different types and levels of complexity, but there's an entire movement of people building SaaS as an individual. And
Yeah.
I mean, like Gil
The
is again
whole
is a great
the
example.
whole like indie hacker community is
Yeah,
all about,
yeah,
yeah.
right. I
Uh,
forgot about that. Yeah, that's exactly it. The whole yeah. And so I was like,
like
dude,
like the
um,
levels like that
yes,
made Nomad
yes,
List. He's
yes.
like he famously brags about Nomad List, makes I don't know 100K a month or something, and it's like running on like one PHP file that all
Yeah,
has all the
yeah,
code.
yeah. I know, dude.
And
I
he's
know,
like
man.
I have like one server like $200 a month or something.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah. It's crazy, man. That guy. And then
and
it's just PHP and jQuery just for life.
yeah,
Like he does not
yeah.
give a damn.
That's
Yeah,
that's the
it's
dream.
that's the dream, dude. That's the friggin' dream. Um, but yeah, I was gonna tie that. Oh, which kind of ties into this thing that I was thinking about, like Harley tweeted about, the entrepreneurs. The world needs more entrepreneurs. That's what we're making possible. Shopify, happy World Entrepreneurs Day. And
Yeah.
it's funny because like I'm not an entrepreneur anymore. Although I guess you could say I kind of am sort of at heart or whatever. But I think the mission of Shopify is really cool.
Hmm.
Even though like you might say, well, if it's so cool, then why don't you do it yourself? You know what I mean? But like I do think it's really cool, and when people can do that, it's awesome. And I'd actually love at some point to actually make a physical product, like maybe a pickleball something or other. Like
Yeah.
now that I'm so into pickleball, but like that would be a totally different business from tech and stuff like that. But
Right.
yeah, like I really think the mission is really cool. Like in a way, I don't think Magento like empowered the individual entrepreneur in quite the same way. Like especially in
Yeah.
recent years, it was all about bigger companies or at least medium-sized companies. And so I think that's
Yeah.
really cool. But simultaneously, like I'm not an entrepreneur anymore. So it's a little bit of a contradiction.
Right. But I think Shopify's done a really good job of slowly going up market, but not forgetting about, the entrepreneurs that are just starting out that, don't have any experience and are trying to start a Shopify from $0. And, maybe it works,
Right.
maybe it doesn't. And they didn't have to invest a lot of money in at least the e-commerce part, that if it doesn't work, they're only out like $30 a month for
Right.
a year or so. So
Right.
I do think that they really like empower entrepreneurs and um, 10 years ago, if you wanted to start an e-commerce site, you probably would have to use something like Magento or like I think OS Commerce, like there was all these janky solutions, and you would definitely have to hire a developer from the
Yeah.
get-go. Like you wouldn't even be able to like just get a website to shop up, if you weren't a developer. So they've
Yeah.
definitely like, broadened their I don't know their market.
Right.
Um, and I don't think they've forgotten about them like Magento. Um, Magento definitely went up market and they left the, the lower end of the market. Even
Totally.
yeah,
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like that was something that we'd argue about all the time in the Magento community is like,
yeah,
what about the open source enthusiasts?
hmm
Like, uh, but yeah, I mean, comparing the two, it's clear, and actually to the point where for people like us who are trying to most of the time sell or market to the more of the plus side of the ecosystem or the
yeah,
whatever, the whatever that is, the advanced plus side of the ecosystem. It's like if you go to the forums, there's a mix of like you'll have one question from somebody who's day one, you know, like
yeah,
obviously, very much a day one entrepreneur, no technical background whatsoever. And the
yeah,
next question is somebody who's like a CTO for like a brand that has 100 people, type of, and that's the person we want to to talk to and
yep,
to sell to ultimately. So it's actually frustrating from that perspective of trying to isolate. Like I keep thinking, I wish there was a Shopify forums for the bigger stores.
Right. Plus
type of
only.
thing. Yeah. Um, because in terms of what my job is, that's my job, is to
Yeah.
reach out to those people essentially. Um,
The sad thing, it's like it's honorable that Shopify like has such a passion for, people just starting out and the
right,
entrepreneurs. But
right.
on the flip side, for the ecosystem and app developers, the support tickets from a merchant that's doing $10 a month versus
Yes.
$1,000 a month is the same cost, and the reviews a lot of times are left
Yeah.
by the lower end. So it is kind of like a drain on the ecosystem, and I don't know exactly
Right.
how they can balance like being supportive without it
Right.
being too much support.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting tension there because without the newer entrepreneurs, that's like the lifeblood in a
Yeah,
sense. Like,
yeah.
that's the ground. Um, I can't remember.
Grassroots.
That's the
Um,
grassroots,
yeah,
and that's what like where Shopify came from, and so you need to continue to have that, but it creates that tension. But like what they did with the reviews, where they're ranking them by ranking the reviews by like if there's something sort of more meaningful in the review. I can't
right.
remember. I think they're like ranking if doing some AI stuff to
Yeah,
surface up the reviews that are more have more to say. Like that probably helps
yep,
to cut down on some of the like lower effort like reviews from the newer stores. But
yeah.
yeah, it's a tricky
And
thing to solve, I think.
and I think the Shopify Sidekick too is really targeted towards maybe the lower end of the market to have a support outlet for them that doesn't require any resources from Shopify. Because
Yeah.
I've heard that they really scaled up their customer service team during COVID because there was so much demand, but then
Hmm.
they realized it was so expensive, and so now they're trying to scale it back and save on cost, but
Hmm.
they don't want to completely let people down. Um, and AI to the rescue, Chat GPT comes just in time.
Right. Right. Do you know anybody that's using that? Any of your clients that are starting to use it for little things here and there?
I don't think it's totally out yet. So I
Okay.
don't know
I
anyone
wasn't
using
sure.
it.
Yeah.
There's probably like some sort of a closed beta. So maybe
Okay.
some people are using it, but it's not, you can't just
Gotcha.
go and install it.
Gotcha, gotcha. That's another one of the funny things I noticed in the Shopify ecosystem is that something will be released or announced, and then it's in the mind share of everyone,
Yeah,
and everybody has thoughts on it and stuff like that. And then you go like, "Hey, have you used it?" And then people are like, "Oh no, it's like I don't even know if it's out." It's such a weird
totally.
thing. But it makes
Yeah,
sense. They got to roll it out gradually. I mean, it totally makes sense.
that's the thing with the editions. It's a combination of things that they've already released, things that they're releasing that day, and then things that aren't released and it's coming
Yeah.
someday in the future.
But
Like
it's always phrased in the like present tense. It's
it's like it
always
just
phrased.
dropped. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's
yeah,
so
dropped today.
it's like a Vulcan mind swipe type of a thing. But
Yeah, I mean, even Toby had like a video, even I think before editions, like announcing Sidekick.
yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
such a push, and
Yeah.
then like it's not available. It's just and there's no
Yeah.
release date either. Like that's kind of the
Right.
confusing
Right.
thing. Hmm,
But actually,
yeah,
I'm a big fan of not having deadlines. Like, I think that you work on it, and when it's ready, it's ready. Like, I
yeah,
think that the Basecamp guys, Jason Fried and DHH, I think they had gone with that philosophy. And
hmm,
like we were talking about how the enterprise sales cycles tend to be real deadline driven, and that tends to make things worse.
yeah,
So I think it's a good way to do software, but it is like you do just want a date. Like give me a date. Like when, you just want to get your
yeah,
grubby hands on it,
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Like, you know.
Well, maybe when it's in beta anyway, they assumed it's going to get out. So it's smart to go ahead and make a public announcement and like get people excited over it. And I just
Right.
went, honestly, I wish the betas were a little more open. Like, all right, I'm just opting in. But most of the
Right.
time, if they have a beta, it's like, okay, get on the waiting list, and most
Right.
people won't get into the beta. So maybe,
Right.
maybe they could have more of an open beta program.
Yeah, like maybe if they could just say, "Hey, here's where you are in the queue." You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And then
the
but
waiting.
I'm guessing they probably look at that list and they probably go, "All right, we want this store, we want this," you know. And
Yeah.
maybe that's they probably don't just go straight in order. Um, so whereas like with a Tesla pre-order, when you order a Tesla, you know where you are in the line and you're
Hmm.
gonna, you know what I mean? You're gonna get it at that point. But yeah, that would be kind of cool. Um,
So you said your Tesla came like pretty quick, right?
Pretty quick, man. Yeah, it's like a week or so.
Nice.
And yeah, it's because what happened was it was a pretty standard Model Y, and then we wanted a tow hitch, and
Hmm.
then we wanted like the nicer tires, and then after
Uh-uh.
we ordered it, they sent a message and they were like, "Oh, we have a Model Y that's really similar, but it doesn't have the tow hitch." And I told my wife, I was like, "We got to have the tow hitch." And then
Deal
there was
breaker.
another one that had the tow hitch, but it didn't have the tires. And then
Uh,
I told her, I was like, honestly, like the tires are kind of a nice to have.
yeah.
But she didn't accept that one in time, so she missed that one.
Ah,
And then the next one that came out had everything and it was like ready in like a week.
nice.
So I was glad we didn't. Actually, when we went to pick it up, I thought we were getting one that didn't have the upgraded tires. And then when I
Mm,
saw it, I was like, oh, dang, we got the tires because they just look, they look kind of smooth.
nice.
Yeah. So, hey, when am I coming to Miami, dude? I'm gonna keep.
I'm
No, I'm just
I'm
kidding. I'm
leaving
just kidding.
tomorrow.
No, I know. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I mean, you
I
can
don't know
come while
why.
I'm not here too.
Cool, cool.